I am in utter disbelief, pain, I'm heartbroken, I'm excited for the future of Trigun Stampede, because watching episodes 4 and 5, they were a roller coaster of emotions. There's the adrenaline from the amazing action scenes, and then there's the heartbreak of seeing really into our boy Vash's psyche and seeing just how much his life must be like what we saw at the end of episode 5. Wanting to help, but either being tossed away, as seen by the recent arc with that entire village, or you have a child who had to grow up as such an abomination, and you just couldn't save them. That is, wow, this show is honestly getting to that next level status for me, where I'm just so excited, so terrified of what the future of the show truly has to go with, and I am worried but excited to see what's gonna happen next. Now, I do have a full live reaction to both episodes 4 and 5 available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full thoughts uncut with all that excitement and heartbrokenness, yeah, consider supporting and heading on over there. But we will talk about these two, because I didn't talk about last week. I was just honestly a little tired. I wanted to catch up on some rest, because this season be crazy, especially on the weekend. But hopefully no more double reviews for Trigun going forward, but I think it honestly does work quite well, because we get introduced to a character, Wolfwood, who is he's a tank, man. He's got this giant cross slung around his back, and I'm like, okay, either this is going to be a giant gun, or it's going to be a giant melee weapon. Seemingly, it could probably be both. But we get introduced to this dude who just seems very cool, calm and collected. He feels like someone who's, yes, a little greedy, because he immediately is like, hey, you know, I'm going to charge you an arm and a leg, and they're like, we're not going to pay you an arm and a leg for these services we didn't even want. But then you get into this really cool combat scene where, honestly, I thought I was in Star Wars for a minute. There's this giant mouth popping up from the sand, they get swallowed a couple of times, and you're basically, you know, you discover what seems to be a kid that were hiding in like this locker, and the parents were brutally killed over the course of the episode, and by the end we realize actually this is a scumbag of a child. And just to see the escalation, it was such a brilliant directing choice, because my thought was, in the moment, like, I really wasn't doubting either one of them. I was like, maybe this Wolfwood might be a little, maybe we can't work with him, but I wasn't expecting him to be related to the big bad of the episode or anything like that. So when the reveal comes that the child was actually the one causing the carnage, I was like, oh, that's brilliant, because it shifts your focus if you did have any maybe worry about Wolfwood. If you've never seen the original or you have no knowledge, this is a fresh experience for you, you shift it right to the kid. So then by the time it's all resolved and it seems like they're going to continue traveling together, and then you see that little bastard with its mosquito form pop up, and just the fact that it seems like Wolfwood can't be trusted. It definitely gives me the impression like it's trying to get across that like maybe the lifestyle that he's currently living isn't exactly what he wants. There does seem to be more complexity there than just he's gonna stab our boy Vash in the back someday because it's more fun to have them connected or this or that. But it's gonna happen at some point, and I think by the end of episode 5 we're already seeing, in terms of them seemingly working together, there's a conflict of interest. We have someone like Vash who says, why would you shoot? And he says, well, that was mercy. Whether or not you see that as mercy, it's a coin toss. You can actually see both sides' perspectives. You have someone like Vash who's looking at this abomination that is a child that he promised to save, that was a part of this cult, all things considered, and the fact that he just wanted to help. And even if he couldn't be reversed back to who he once was, it's entirely possible they might have been able to have a life together. I mean, we can look at our favorite mad scientist, Nebraska, and his giant hulk of a son, right? I mean, it feels like there's a possibility for that. But then you look at it from Wolfwood's perspective, and it looks like a giant monster that could lose cool at any particular moment and kill the people that seemingly it wants to protect, right? So you can see both sides, and probably in this moment, Wolfwood had the right idea. It was a clean death. It was a one shot to the head. It was over, fell, like there's no suffering in comparison to probably what he experienced up to that entire point. But to see that level of emotion be conveyed with that expressive animation, I mean, this show does so good with framing. You can look at like moments where there's chase scenes, right? I mean, at some points I feel like I'm playing the Uncharted series, because you'll just be running and like the franticness, the way the environment, whether it's clothes hanging up on the clothesline or any little thing, like just the way the environment and chase scenes work, they're so immersive. Or the fact that when you really focus in on Vash running, he doesn't feel like a professional killer. He doesn't feel like a professional warrior. He's a dude running for his life. He's flailing his arms because there's a giant dude with giant machine guns firing at you. He's not going to try to look the coolest. He's just getting the hell out of dodge. And I really like what Studio Orange is doing from the character expressions, really getting into that body language, but just the fact that they are so good at establishing so many different things, whether it's the initial establishing shots with a mother and a child praying, asking God for help because there's no wind, and then learning over the course of the episode, just seeing just how much of a cult it is, like being like, I mean, at one point when he initially tries to run away, right? And Vosh ends up finding him, he's pretty much saying like, am I being punished because I don't believe in God? It's just such a heartbreaking moment, and this was a cult, all things considered. I don't think you can say anything other than that. And it's just kind of frightening to think, like, what could happen in our own world with the type of cult and overly religious zealots we have in our own world if they had the type of technology and just the ideas that you could plug a serum into a boy and turn him into Bane from Batman. And I mean, that really is what he turned into. And it was a really heartbreaking episode. Not only seeing that initially, I thought it was just, oh, you know, he was helping the mother find the lost kid. Turns out, ever since a baby had connection. So the fact that from birth to death, he felt like a failure, that he couldn't properly save. And when he thought he was saving, he was just bringing him back to his death. It's a very heartbreaking episode. And I think the more we watch of these like episodic stories, we really get a sense of who Vosh is as a character. We see the type of man he wants to be, but then we see the man he ends up being because of circumstances generally out of his control, and the fact that some of his actions, it's hard not to see why anyone would blame themselves for the ultimate outcome, even if they weren't the one who put the needle in the arm. I mean, they were the one who brought the kid back so that could happen, and it's pretty tragic. Episode 4 had a lot of great moments, some funny moments, and I think it was a great establishing episode for Wolfwood as a character, this Nicholas guy who, honestly, his weapon is cool. I just hope we get to see some more melee sides to the combat with that giant cross, but when he spins that thing around and he starts like changing chambers and stuff, it's pretty intense, I gotta admit. But man, this stretch of episodes 4 and 5, so good. I really have no idea where we're going other than clearly Knives is gonna be the main antagonist of the show. And honestly, based on the first taste we got of his abilities, it's going to be next level carnage if that was literally his first moment on screen. But it's interesting. I think the cast is really solid. We got two seemingly normal people who kind of bring out that sense of normalcy, but as we also see, got a bit of trolling as you're telling ghost stories in the truck. And then you have two really talented warriors who have two varying ideas of how to operate this landscape, and knowing that at a moment's notice, Wolfwood could end up betraying them and stabbing them in the back. There's heartbreak, there's action, there's pain and excitement on the horizon, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But I'll pass the torch over to you, whether you have thoughts on episode 4 or 5 of Trigun Stampede. What did you think? Did you find it as heartbreaking as me? Do let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell so you can get as many notifications to the channel as possible, and as I mentioned, full live reactions to both 4 and 5 are on the Patreon if you want to see that full uncut thought. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.